And greetings. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, podcast. Alongside Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, I am Steve Deace. Want to start off today's show. We always love to give top billing to a new partner when they come on board. We want to do that today for the Freedom Chamber. If you are a pro-American business owner, you are not alone. And the Freedom Chamber is open for business. When you join the Freedom Chamber, you and other small to medium business owners, you can make your voices combined and heard. And the Freedom Chamber provides exclusive benefits to help business owners grow and protect their businesses by building a future rooted in faith, family, and freedom. We can no longer afford to sit on the sidelines. We have to unite our voices to fight back with strength and numbers. This is a key component in building the parallel economy. It's the pro-American business network. You can join today at freedomchamber.net. That's freedomchamber.net. Freedom Chamber, a dynamic, innovative organization established to empower American businesses across all sectors. And again, this is a key component in the culture war, in the establishing of a parallel economy. So as much as possible, we are not directly funding people who hate us. You want to go to freedomchamber.net. That's freedomchamber.net and join today. All right, coming up on today's program, next hour, we are going to do some old school fake news or not. You know, we decided this year that fake news or not should evolve into idolatry or not. But we're going to bring fake news or not back because it is quite possible. And this is, understand that this is saying something. Okay. But it is quite possible what is occurring right now is the fakest news that ever faked. That we have reached an entirely new crescendo of gaslighting. Retconning. What the great Rush Limbaugh used to call accidental journalism. We'll get into that coming up in the next hour of the show. I'm also going to have kind of a tradition on the program. When we get halfway through a year, I have my top 10 films of the year thus far. We will discuss those in Pop Culture Tuesday. We're going to be joined at the bottom of the hour by one of our new additions here at The Blaze, and I was on our debate coverage with him about 2 weeks ago, and I just was impressed, thought he was fantastic, so I made sure to ping the powers that be on The Blaze and say, hey, we've got to get our new Washington, D.C. correspondent, Christopher Bedford, on the show. And given what is going on right now, I mean, have you guys seen the clip of one of these Democrat members of Congress walking out of their meeting right now? They had a meeting this morning. Yeah. Is it in the montage? Okay, I don't want to spoil it then. I mean, these are truly some extraordinary times, and Chris is there to cover it on the ground. So we're going to get some outstanding analysis and reporting from him coming up at the bottom of the hour. But before all of that, let us begin with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by The Platform. The RNC Platform Committee has reportedly approved a new Trump-supported Republican platform that lists 20 priorities for the party. Missing on that platform for the first time in my adult life is language committing to passing a nationwide ban on baby murder. Instead, the 20 priorities are somewhat generic America First policies that most non-hardened leftists would probably agree with, at least most of them anyway. There is language elsewhere in the platform that commends the 14th Amendment and kicks the issue of baby killing back to the states. Various platform committee members, including this lady, Gail Ruzicka from Utah, said that the RNC for the first time didn't allow any questions, comments, or amendments to the platform.
It's never happened before. Like I said, I've done this several times. There was no committees. We always had subcommittees where we can go in and work on a section of the platform. We can propose amendments, debate them, add them. Always happens. I've done it many times. And then it would usually take today, and then tomorrow we would come back and meet as a complete platform, and sometimes there'd be more amendments. They didn't allow any amendments. They didn't allow any discussion. They rolled us. That's what they did. We spent thousands of dollars to be here, and everything they told us they were going to do isn't what happened. None of it happened. I've never seen this happen before. I don't understand why they did it, and I'm extremely disappointed that we do not have any pro-life language. There are good things in this platform. There are a lot of things in there that I support and that I would want to, but I didn't vote for this because We've never had a platform. I've been coming to these conventions since 1992. And this is the first time we don't have a pro-life platform.
Not to worry, though, because some lady named Amber Rose is reportedly set to speak at the Republican National Convention next week. Rose is a model and feminist, an organizer of something called the Slut Walk, and an ardent supporter of Donald Trump. The report that she's speaking next week at the RNC originally came from CNN, citing sources. So take that with a grain of salt, but it is believable. Themes for next week's convention have been released. Monday is Make America Wealthy once again. Tuesday is Make America Safe once again. Wednesday is Make America Strong once again. Thursday is Make America Great once again. Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is, why?
为什么?
Meanwhile, at the White House, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby made this remark about Joe Biden's upcoming supposedly unscripted press conference at the NATO summit.
After that, the president will hold a press conference. I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it, and take some questions from y'all.
Congressional Democrats met this morning to discuss the future of their party with Joe Biden at the helm, according to MSNBC. One House Democrat supportive of Biden said the meeting felt like a funeral, and that there was no consensus about what to do with Biden. As he was leaving the meeting, Tennessee Representative Steve Cohen remarked,
You all on the same page?
No.
What do you mean you're not on the same page?
Not even in the same book.
On MSNBC, Parkinson's disease expert Dr. Tom Pitts says Biden's got it.
It's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemmonode dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of en bloc turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
House Democrats have launched an effort to stop a Republican-introduced bill that would require every voter prove citizenship in order to vote. Let me just read that again. House Democrats have launched an effort to stop a Republican-introduced bill that would require every voter prove their citizenship in order to vote. The last 4 years of a wide-open southern border was not incompetence. It was malevolence. And finally, this from the Babylon Bee. Democrats announced comprehensive plan to win the election by calling Trump Hitler again. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. According to the University of Utah, total active drug shortages in America have hit an all-time high of 323 this year. There were 48 new shortages recorded this year just through the month of March. Now, I don't know what the number is now, but when we started off with COVID, remember we learned that 85% of American antibiotics were manufactured where? China. I am sure the Chinese are anxious to help us alleviate our current drug shortage problem. Amen? I'm sure it's a very high priority for Xi. No? Probably not. That's why you want to make sure, again, the earliest a new president could take over, guys, is more than 190 days from today. More than 190 days from today. Pardon me. That's the absolute earliest. Are you sure? That could never happen here. Won't happen here again. Are you sure your loved one who's a complete total ward of the state on Medicare or Medicaid has the medications that he or she needs, that they won't be the next to be called horse-paced and dangerous? No, you're not sure. And you shouldn't be. That's why you want to go to JaceMedical.com. JASE, you can also expand the Jace case now to your medications as well. You can customize it. At JaceMedical.com, use the code DACE at checkout for the discount. JASE code DACE at checkout for the discount at JaceMedical.com. Even practical additions like EpiPens available. Ivermectin, by the way, available. Okay, so promo code DACE at JaceMedical.com. JASE, JaceMedical.com, promo code DACE. All right, we are going to table the discussion of Biden And now legacy corporate Democrat media industrial complex is now telling us, as you saw in Aaron's montage, that the president has Parkinson's. Okay? That needs its own conversation. And so we're going to have it next hour in Fake News or Not. All right? I want to spend a few minutes here at the top of the show discussing something, and I don't say this very often, but something I might be uniquely qualified to analyze. For two reasons. Number one, I have done more activism, more writing, more broadcasting, and more public speaking on the issue of life than any other issue in my career. But number two, I have worked at a high level on a presidential campaign from the inside, discussing strategy, messaging, and I'm not entirely sure. Oh, and then number three, I once knew Donald Trump personally. So, I don't know, you guys tell me. I'm sure there are some other people that have significant platforms today that pro-lifers could go and find that check all three boxes that I just checked. But it's not a long list. I don't know who else is on the list, but it wouldn't be a long list. Fair?
Yeah, I think so.
It would not be a long list. Okay? So with that unique perspective, if you guys will permit me something for a few minutes here, I want to approach what's happening with the life issue in the Republican Party not from necessarily a straight up spiritual perspective, although that would be part of what I analyze. And I say that acknowledging that the nexus of the war on this planet between heaven and hell in every culture has always been state-instituted child sacrifice. That's why we highlighted it in Nefarious, the film. It's why I highlighted it in Nefarious Plot, the book. And it's why every culture in all of human history, every single one, it's an anthropological fact of humanity, every single culture in human history has practiced some form of child sacrifice, because we, as we're going to learn in Romans 3 when we get there starting this week, we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All are like sheep and led astray. No one is good but God, Jesus says himself. And so this has been at the nexus of the battle between heaven and hell from the beginning. Because one of the key aspects that differentiate us from the angels, and that's what demons are, fallen angels, is God gave us the ability to make things in our image, to pass on our image to created beings. He didn't give it to them. And so it only makes sense, therefore, that the fallen ones, the ingrates, in order to demonstrate their true hate for humanity and disgust at their creator, what would be the first thing they would try to sully in order to express that? What would be the primary means for them to express that? Sully and corrupt the method by which we bring children into the world, so sexuality, and then corrupt the bringing of children into the world at all via child sacrifice, right? And that battle has been waged in every culture. Not every culture has waged a battle over which language to incorporate. Not every culture. We didn't even have written language on this planet till 4,000 years ago. Not every culture has waged a war over whether or not to have honest weights and measures with its currencies. We didn't even have, strictly currency-driven economies until a few thousand years ago. You see what I'm saying? But from the beginning of human organization or culture, the nexus of the fight between heaven and hell has been over sexuality vis-a-vis institutionalized child sacrifice. If you'll permit me for a second, I want to set that aside, because there are other people that have very solid biblical worldviews, that have significant platforms, that could have that conversation with you today, and I've only got a limited amount of time. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I also, if you don't mind, want to set aside the idea of the principle here. And I do that again, also noting how important it is. As Ronald Reagan, the only president to ever write a book while in office, and that book was called Abortion and the Conscience of a Nation. As he once put it, all of your other God-given rights are kind of moot if you don't have the right to life, right? In the Declaration of Independence, when it gives a partial, in other earlier drafts, there were more details, but the final draft we read gives a partial list of our inalienable rights, and first among them listed is what? Life. Because again, it's the gateway. If you're not alive, you don't have any other rights. If you're dead, you don't have any rights. The dead don't have rights. Well, except the right to vote.
Couple of times
if they so desire. Indeed. The Democrats do not believe in the resurrection of Jesus, but they do believe in the resurrection of voters. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Indeed. Yes. Okay. So that, again, though, is something that a lot of my colleagues who also have significant or larger platforms would do just as good of a job, if not better than we would, and they would be very eloquent, and that's very important. And again, we have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to set the direct spiritual battle here and the direct philosophical principle at stake here. If you guys don't mind, I want to set that aside and try to provide the audience an angle that maybe other people necessarily won't see or wouldn't recognize because they don't necessarily check the three boxes that I do, that I just mentioned. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to discuss tactically what is occurring with Trump and his people and the life issue. It is not about this election. Let me rephrase that, or repeat that, I should say. It is not about this election. How many of the $300 to $400 million in ads the Democrats plan on running, reminding every single woman that Donald Trump appointed the justices that overturned Roe, how many of them do you think were canceled because the Democrats heard the news that Trump took the life issue out of the party platform? How many of them do you think were canceled? None. First of all, how many people even read the party platform? How much of normie America, let's make it more succinct, how much of normie America reads the party platform? 0 is the answer. Doesn't care. All right? And that's what we're really talking about here, okay? All right? Who's going to win these normie voters? None of them care. All right? The idea that you have insulated yourself from what Democrats are going to say about you. I mean, they've said every Republican nominee is the most anti-abortion candidate ever. This time it's actually true. Right? Trump appointed the justices that overturned Roe versus Wade. It's actually true this time. It wasn't true about John McCain, and it wasn't true about Mitt Romney. It's actually true this time. Now, did I say he was sufficiently pro-life? Is that what I said? No. What was the wording I said? Anti-abortion. Who on the right in elected office has ever done anything more anti-abortion than appointing the justices that overturned Roe? Nobody is the answer. So this idea that, a largely obscure, when I say obscure, I mean 150 million people minimum are going to vote in this thing in 4 months, okay? And so for the vast majority of them, this is a largely obscure thing, the Republican Party platform. To people like you and I who watch and consume shows like this, it's not obscure at all. But to the larger electorate, you bet your sweet bippy, it's obscure, and they don't know and don't care. So this is going to insulate Donald Trump from precisely nothing. Precisely nothing. And I don't believe they're so dumb that they don't realize that. I don't believe this is about this election. When I was coming of age politically and listening to Rush Limbaugh on a daily basis, I remember listening to Rush play clips of two individuals. They were married at the time, Roger and Ann Stone. Do you remember these days? And they would show up at the party platform debate the week before the Republican or on the eve of the GOP convention every 4 years. And they'd get on C-SPAN and Rush would play the clips mocking them because they were out there trying to get all the pro-life language taken out of the party platform. I mean, that was 40 years ago. He's one of Donald Trump's closest political confidants today.
Roger Stone.
This is not about this election. It's about the next several ones. What is happening here, I believe, strongly, is that the Trump political machine is attempting to franchise the Republican Party moving forward. I think if we put the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around them this is what they would say. The Republican Party has too many disparate coalitions. We agree with this, right? They would say it cannot possibly, all these different viewpoints and everything else, be reined in. Again, we would agree with this. These are arguments we've been making on this show since the day this show began, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So where we would differ is, therefore, what is the solution? And they would say the solution is, without, for lack of they would say strong leader, but what we're really talking about here is a king. And when there is a king, at the king's court, are there disparate factions?
Sure.
Are there disparate agendas?
Yes.
Are there different people with different ambitions and ideologies? Yes. But they're all united under loyalty to whom?
King.
The king. And therefore, they will learn to share power within that court to all have the access they need and the approval they want from the king, correct? Mm-hmm. This is how the Democratic Party has ran for generations. Remember how I used to say, if you ask somebody, why are you a Democrat? And they would say, well, I'm a single woman, I'm gay, I'm black, I'm a teacher. They give you an identity, right? You've heard me say this a million times, right? Mm-hmm. And if you ask somebody, why are you a Republican? They'd say, I'm pro-life, I believe in a strong national defense, I want limited government. They'd give you a value, a principle, right? And the Republicans were the ideologically driven party, and the Democrats were the coalition-based party, which is how you got fire-breathing black ministers to vote for, the same candidates as Rosie O'Donnell, butch lesbian, all right, and vice versa. How you got butch lesbian Rosie O'Donnell to vote for the same candidates as the fire-breathing black ministers, okay, because they all realized that the government to them is king, and to get the access they need from the king, they have to work together as a coalition and set their principles aside. The Trump empire is attempting to remake the Republican Party into that image. And you're watching this play out right now. And it's how you get people like Elise Stefanik and, pick some of the good names in Trump's pastoral council. Elise Stefanik was the only member of the Republican leadership in the House a few years ago who voted to give Democrats the holy grail of the rainbow jihad, the only one. And yet she's one of Trump's closest confidants and supporters. Not because she agrees with him on a lot of the issues he articulates, just because she's willing to slobber for him. That's what kings do. For kings, it's rare that there's an agenda beyond the king himself. That's just pretty much true in every single culture that has kings. That's why God warned the Israelites, you say you want a king, are you sure you know what's coming if I give you one of these? Okay? This is what kings do. Trump also likes to leave a legacy. If you ever visited Manhattan and seen the skyline there, you see evidence that Trump likes leaving a legacy, okay? Number 3, the Trump family is boxed out in the future when it comes to business interests. They can no longer return to doing the business deals and Trump casinos hosting major prize fights and Trump golf courses hosting events for ESPN on the PGA Tour. Those days are all gone because they dared to associate with people like us. And so they've been excommunicated from the larger celebrity world. The Trump empire, therefore, needs some form of revenue generator to sustain itself moving forward after Trump. And it's going to be the Republican Party. It's going to be politics. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to franchise the Republican Party. Now, Trump is 78. He'll be lucky if he gets reelected, and I think he will, based on the stuff we're going to talk about next hour. But he'll be lucky to finish that term. I mean, we could be sitting here a year from now with Parkinson's experts, and that's one of the things I'm going to get to next hour. These people on the other side, man, they are the ones who play the real 4D chess. It's not that they're just trying to get rid of Biden. They're setting a precedent. A year from now, 2 years at the max. Maybe they'll wait till Trump turns 80. If they can't get rid of Biden and Trump wins. It might even be the exact same guy that you just saw in that clip from MSNBC. That exact same guy is going to be back on MSNBC saying, well, Trump's got dementia. Trump's got Parkinson's. Trump has to step aside. Same thing. From the same people that brought you, let's nail Hunter Biden for everything other than the shady business dealings with his old man, so that gives us clearance now to go after Trump and put him in jail. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's who you're dealing with here. I kind of spoiled some of what I'm bringing up next hour, but this isn't just about getting rid of Joe Biden. This is about now, and a bunch of us are dumb and giving them a bunch of credibility. Well, they're being honest and telling that no, they're setting you up. And in 12 to 24 months, if they cannot get rid of Joe Biden, then it will be next year or it'll be the year after before the 2025 or 2026 midterms. Those same exact medical experts are going to be right back on camera on those corporate media outlets saying Trump has dementia and Trump has Parkinson's. Mark my words, Aaron, mark this tape. That's coming. Can I get an amen?
Yes.
Yeah. So Trump is trying to create something that will outlive him. He can pass on to his children. That gives them instantaneous and consistent revenue, relevance, celebrity. And even if none of them ever want to run for office themselves, it'll be required of you to go and kiss the ring to get the Trump endorsement, whether that's from Junior or not any of the other kids or the sister or the daughter-in-law who's running the RNC. That's what is happening here. The party's being franchised. And it's being remade in his image. The country is always made in the image of its king. This is the position they're staking out on abortion. Late-term abortion is bad. Everything else is cool. J.D. Vance saying, yeah, the company that makes Zyklon B, give out that abortion drug every day. That's basically the New York GOP's position on abortion for the last 50 years. And these guys are all New York GOP people. Trump, Stone, all of them. They're remaking the party. It's not about this election. They think they got this election won, and they're probably right. We have nowhere else to go. We're trapped. We cannot sustain this for another 4 years. The Democrats have decided to go ahead and have a civil war in the middle of the summertime of an election that looked like they were favored to win. They're probably right. This is a play for the foreseeable future, that the Republican Party remains Trump Inc. long after he's gone. The family has no other path to maintaining itself without political relevance, and its only political relevance is going to be found on the right, or the fake right, whichever you want to call it. That's what's happening here. And so just like Henry VIII, when he didn't get the divorce decree that he wanted from the Catholic Church one more time, annulment. When he didn't get the annulment he wanted one more time, just went out and started his own church. And then one day he looked at the Protestant reformers and said, I think we should just remake the Lord's Prayer. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Just decided to add that to the Lord's Prayer because, that's really sola scriptura. The Protestants got together after breaking away from the Catholics and decided, let's add to the scriptures because the king said so. As Critical Drinker would say, what were they thinking? Don't know. That's what they did, though. That's what they did. That's where that line comes from. Jesus doesn't say that. Henry VIII does. Same thing. Kings make kingdoms over in their own image to live on beyond themselves. Rehoboam needs an inheritance. That's what's happening here. Recognize that. This isn't about this election. He's going to win. And if he doesn't, all in favor of excommunicating everyone who couldn't beat the dementia retard, say aye.
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 And the ayes have it. And the excommunications begin on November the 6th until morale improves. Amen?
Yes.
Yes, they do. But that's not going to happen. They're going to win. And the Democrats know this, which is why they're in a free fall and destabilizing themselves. But the media is also very cunning and crafty, like the serpent who is their true father. And they're setting the stage for a year, 2 at the most, in time for the next midterm, when they roll out these exact same medical experts to tell you that Trump has Parkinson's and Trump has dementia and he has to go. Meanwhile, what the Trump team is trying to do is franchise the GOP. So it will be permanently, or at least for the foreseeable future, remade into his image. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
So we went from 2012, when the Democrats booed God at their convention, to a platform now in 2024, just 12 years later, that essentially makes America greatness God. America's greatness is God.
Yep.
That's basically the overriding principle. It's not really
nationalism becomes idolatry every single time.
Exactly.
Every time.
So we go from Democrats booing God 12 years ago to now Republicans are remaking their God, or at least foisting up an idol of their own. You're not going to beat that.
Well, theoretically, the silver lining of all this, and you see some of it in the pushback against this. I don't know if they're serious or not, but this leads to a stronger church because the idolatry is just so out in the open now. You don't want a seat at this table.
And you could really see God at this point as saying, hey, the Rainbow Jihad, look what they did with 2% of the population. Wait till you see what I do with 2% of the population. I could see that too. The master gardener does tend to prune his tree at times like these, does he not?
Yes.
Hey, remember back in the day when you could do all the normal fun stuff? You could be active, you could be mobile, and now when you try to do that again, it feels like you're walking on eggshells, rocks, broken glass. Well, living with pain is no joke. Maybe you've tried everything, but have you tried our friends at Relief Factor? Now, we're not guaranteeing anything. It's not a panacea, but it's a drug-free supplement created by physicians who can prescribe drugs because they were tired of prescribing painkillers that masked the pain. They wanted to go after the inflammation that is likely the cause of most chronic pain, and that supplement is Relief Factor. Over the years, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start. Over 70% of them saw such great results that they stuck around with the product long term. So why don't you see, if you don't see, a difference in your pain level in 3 weeks or less, and it's just $20 to find out. What do you got to lose for $20? Go to relieffactor.com, get the 3-week quick start for $19.95, just $20 at relieffactor.com. Well, I mentioned a few minutes ago that I was part of the debate coverage with the Blaze about 2 weeks ago, and was very impressed with the reporting and analysis of one of our new additions here on the network. Christopher Bedford is kind of our Washington, D.C. insider correspondent, and Chris joins us now here on the program for the first time. And Chris, I'm guessing this is going to be the first of several times we'll have you on the show, based on what I saw at debate night. Brother, how are you?
Oh, it's great to be here, and thanks for the kind words and welcome.
You bet. Very well deserved. So I want to start with the meeting the Democrats in the House had today. Everybody's leaking all over the place. I saw one corporate media outlet refer to it as, quote, a Biden funeral, end quote. Another media outlet, though, said that they're learning it's hard when you go after a king. You better make sure you go for the kill. They're potentially leaving themselves in the position of openly telling the American people that, yes, the president is cognitively in decline. And then 3 months from now, telling everybody you have to vote for somebody in cognitive decline. Good luck with that. Okay. And then you had the president himself calling in, slurring his words on Morning Joe yesterday. I mean, you're there, brother. What is the atmosphere like in D.C. right now?
Well, I think it's reality bumping up against some of the Aaron Sorkin fantasies that a lot of folks in D.C. have about themselves. After the debate, a lot of Democrats just thought, all right, we'll get a new candidate. That'll be easy. It's completely wild. It's a fantasy thing that they have. And the Democrats, by the way, have been running from reality on Joe Biden for 4 years now. And now they suddenly kind of want to run away from it some more and just swap in Gavin Newsom or swap in Gretchen Whitmer, skip right over Kamala Harris. It's not working. Joe Biden, for one, has appeared to be significantly more stubborn on this. Now, the interviews and speeches he gave this past weekend, they didn't they didn't give any reason for people to think he was actually on the up and up. It wasn't a very strong offense. They would have done fine had they been given a month ago. But after that debate performance, they were not able to actually calm people down. And since then, he's expanded the coalition of folks who are willing to back him to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He had a phone call with her over the weekend, and she came out very vocally for him earlier this week. He had a Zoom call with the Congressional Black Caucus, and the CBC has they're experiencing a record number of chairmanships in the Congress. They have new access to the White House they hadn't previously had with former Democratic presidents. And they also think that their voters, the people they represent, don't just want to switch out Joe Biden for someone new or untested. They're not going to like that kind of DC fantasy. So they're backing him. This is really the deciding week for Joe Biden in the caucus, because for the first time since that debate, you've got the congressman and the Senate both back in session. Reporters are chasing them through the hallways. They're not used to this. They're not used to anyone chasing them or yelling mean questions at them. That's usually something that only happens to Republicans. So since we haven't yet begun to see that flood of people openly getting caught on camera in the hallways saying Joe Biden's got to go, if I was on predictive right now or a betting man, I would say there's a higher chance for certain that Joe Biden survives through this than there was at the beginning of the week.
What I think is interesting is, and it's kind of inside baseball what you just said, but it's the kind of inside baseball the average news consumer will see in the coverage that they watch. In that, terms like comms teams and things of that nature, nerds like us know what that stuff means, maybe even worked those jobs in the past, but the average consumer doesn't know what that stuff means. What I think is interesting that our audiences need to be on the lookout for is what you just alluded to towards that end. These are people that are not used to facing this level of scrutiny. Okay, it's a little bit like you'll learn about me, Chris. I came from sports, so I love my sports analogies. Okay, it's a little bit like the team might even be a great team, but they just had a whole bunch of cupcakes all year long. No one really could physically challenge them, okay? And then they get to the end of the season, and finally a team, can at least punch back. They might still be the superior team, but this team can punch back. And all of a sudden, with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, it's a one-score game, and they don't know how to close out a game. They've never had to do it, okay? They've never had to worry about that attention to detail. They're having hot dogs on the sideline like Brian Bosworth for the 85 Sooners, okay? And the fourth string is usually in at 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Democratic administrations and politicians in general, in our era especially, are just not used to facing this level of critical scrutiny, to having to message around this, to having to crisis message around these things. And this stuff is usually relegated to what they view as intellectual ghettos, like where we work at the Blaze. Okay, so they're not used to this. And I think, and you're seeing a lot of sloppiness where this is concerned. What happened at the White House press briefing yesterday? They're just not accustomed to facing this level of pushback and fire from corporate media that accepts every premise of their argument. And often the biggest disagreement is how aggressive will you be aggressive enough for us to pursue similar goals. And I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few days, because I think either side's narrative, actually, given what I just said here on the Democratic side, could completely collapse because they just haven't taken this many punches before.
You're right. And Republican staff and members in D.C. have been laughing on the sidelines at these people who do work in the communication shops or represent these different offices, how surprised they are. I saw one communication staffer over the weekend saying, the New York Times only gave me 7 minutes to respond. And all these other Republican staff are sitting there saying, well, welcome to the show. I guess this is your first time actually having to do work. And now, a lot of the analysis over the past 2 weeks, essentially, or a week and a half, has focused on how the Democratic Party really does have a will to power that the Republican Party doesn't have. That if they want to get rid of Joe Biden, they absolutely will, because that's what's best for the party. They put the individual second. They put the masses first, or at least the party loyalties first. But I think what that analysis has somewhat failed to take into account is that these people aren't special geniuses. They're vicious. They do care about power, but they're not brilliant minds. They're not just able to wink and snap their fingers and have this all work for them. And also, within the Democratic Party, there are different centers of power. You've got Jill Biden, who everyone wanted to call doctor previously, and she was supposed to be just the most wonderful woman in the world and got all this great press. Well, it's turned out in the last 9-10 days that a lot of the Republican reporting or conservative reporting or independent reporting was correct about her, that she was someone who was pushing Joe Biden up, propping him up, putting a person who was obviously suffering from the effects of age in the most stressful job on the planet. This is the kind of person whose personality is maybe better represented by the fact that she asked the Marine Corps band to make a new song for her, like Hail to the Chief, the Hail to the First Lady. They only got rid of that because of the embarrassment that was caused by some of the reporting on it. So there's different centers of power within the Democratic Party that aren't actually willing to give this up. And I think that people are starting to worry within Democrat ranks that, holy smokes, like you said, we took a shot at the king, we might not have actually hit. And that they could end up with a moment like when Ted Kennedy, the standard bearer of the left wing of the Democratic Party, challenged Jimmy Carter openly in a primary. It was a massive primary, a big fight. Jimmy Carter won, but he went into campaign against Ronald Reagan so wounded that Ronald Reagan was simply taking clips of Ted Kennedy's speeches and running them as his own advertisement. Here's a Democrat saying this about Ted Kennedy or saying this about Jimmy Carter. All of the sound clips, all of the freak out from the press, if Joe Biden survives, they will try to memory hole it, but they'll have a very difficult time and they'll regret this meltdown.
By the way, do you know the name of one particular senator in 1979 who was a strong advocate of Ted Kennedy challenging Jimmy Carter based on Carter's lack of electability? Do you know who that was?
Was it Senator Joe Biden?
Senator Joe Biden from the state of Delaware, as a matter of fact, yeah. Was a very strong advocate of that.
Fantastic.
Made all the exact same arguments against Jimmy Carter that are now being made against him. All the exact same ones. Okay. Now, he, of course, doesn't remember that now. Okay. But it did happen. All right. So Joe Manchin said something yesterday that I thought was fascinating. He said, give me to the end of this week. And I think events of this week are going to ultimately dictate how this all plays out. Was he speaking of something specific, Chris, or are we just talking about the general atmosphere you faced, which is that you mentioned, which is that Congress has been out of session and is back now. And so all of these elements are kind of coming together in one place, and we'll get a better idea of how far they're willing to take this during this week. Did he mean that, or did he mean something specific?
He meant that. And there was a couple of things that were in the works over the weekend because, D.C. really does leave town for the weekend. If July 4th is on Thursday, then they'll take off Wednesday. And then since they're taking off Wednesday, they might as well not work on Tuesday. People had been out of town for a couple of days here. And over that July 4th holiday, there'd been a couple of different plans hatched. My neighbor, Mark Warner, talked about how he wanted to go and pull together a group of Democratic senators to go to the White House and actually tell the president that he ought to step down and let Kamala Harris take his place. That would be interesting because no senator has actually publicly said he needs to step down. One Democratic senator has said, who served with Joe Biden for 14 years, has said, hey, maybe we should take a look at this. But generally, the Senate's been much more disciplined. But once press leaked about that meeting between Mark Warner and the White House and his colleagues, they ended up just scrambling it and not actually having the courage to go forward and do it. They wanted to try and keep these things internal. But then you've got all of these congressmen and senators here in D.C. actually talking, actually meeting, actually facing the press. And that's when you're going to find out, is there going to be a couple Democrat congressmen who are kind of backbenchers or people who certainly aren't thought leaders in the Democratic Party, like we've seen so far, who are going to come out and say this? Or is it going to spread like wildfire, like panic amongst Democrats? And you have Hakeem Jeffries, who's, despite Nancy Pelosi kind of being in charge of a lot of the Democrats in the House, is the House Minority Leader. He wants to make sure that before he does anything, his entire caucus is unified. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's far from that. Behind the scenes and in private conversations, there's constant panic, but they're trying to, against all odds, maintain some kind of a disciplined front. And he was just out again this week saying, right now, the party stands behind Joe Biden. Once that starts to crumble, and we'll really know if it crumbles by Friday, then that's probably what Senator Joe Manchin was talking about.
Okay. Let's switch gears and talk about, before we let you go, the running mate selection on the Republican side. So some tails were wagging yesterday when out of nowhere, Kristi Noem's entire social media presence disappeared, went offline. All right. So, and I think this woman has demonstrated she doesn't mind attention, Chris. Okay. So I don't think it's because she thought, I'm really overexposed, so some scrubbing going on there. I don't know, but that made a lot of people try to start connecting dots that maybe she is the pick. You have any thoughts on that?
A couple of different candidates and potential picks have been doing that. We saw Doug Burgum's team scrap a lot of his former social media. We saw him scrap some of the previous posts that they've had. Now we've seen it from Kristi Noem. You've got Marco Rubio showing up at a rally this evening with Donald Trump. Right now, you've got, not too far from me, Vivek Ramaswamy out there giving a speech about how his economic policy would slightly differ from J.D. Vance, who's one pick, and then the Libertarians on the other side, kind of a middle lane in between there. So everyone's really digging into this. And I've received no gossip that Kristi Noem is at the top of the list. I would find that surprising. She hasn't been the name that's been bandied around too much lately. The names that I'm hearing most frequently right now, and of course there could be a big surprise, is Doug Burgum, who's more of a liberal Republican for sure, but he's tall and he's handsome and he's got an attractive wife and he made $1 billion, and Donald Trump likes all those things. And then there's J.D. Vance, who's a younger person, doesn't actually quite fit the mold of what Trump likes to look like for a television politician, but he's got all the ideas and is kind of a standard bearer for the MAGA ideas and has been tireless raising money and on the campaign trail. It seems to be between those two at the moment, but Trump doesn't take advice so easily, and he makes some snap decisions. And I would not be shocked at all to be surprised.
What is more likely as we sit here? Final question. I got about a minute and a half. What is more likely as we sit here on Tuesday, July 9th, that Trump's decision is already made, or that it will be a surprise? What's more likely?
Already a surprise. I still think it's a surprise. And the reason for that is because it's so hard to keep a secret. I mean, D.C.'s got more leaks than the Iraqi Navy. I've been calling people, cold calling them, trying to get to the bottom of this, calling old friends who would be in the know, asking, so are you going to be at the convention? Are you going to be there? And just those kind of questions. And nobody seems to yet have realized where they're supposed to be next week. And I think Trump, always the showman, likes to keep people guessing.
Great stuff, Chris. Appreciate it having you on for the first time. Let's definitely do it again. All right. Take care.
It's great to be here.
You bet. I think you guys got a taste there why I was extremely impressed with Chris's work on debate night. Before we get to our partners here with Todd and Aaron, let's talk about our partners at Constitution Wealth. If you are knowingly bankrolling or unknowingly bankrolling the destruction of American values with every investment you make, wouldn't, if you found that out, want to change course and do something about it? I mean, a lot of you in this audience are trying to find places to do business with when it comes to everyday commerce. Why not do the same with your retirement? All right. Don't let your retirement dollars, don't work your entire life and then have those investments be used as a weapon against the next generation. Put them to work on behalf of the next generation. Make it a weapon for our side in the culture war. And this is how Constitution Wealth can help you take a stand and your future and your descendants take a stand as well. They will help you to divest in ESG, woke, DEI, other spirit of the age schemes from your investment portfolio. You're going to learn that you can be both prophetic while making a profit for sure with our friends at Constitution Wealth. So why not partner with people who share your values? And they do. At Constitution Wealth, you can take action now. Visit constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Sign up to get a free consultation today. Sign up to get a free consultation at constitutionwealth.com/blaze. All right, thoughts on the conversation with Chris Bedford?
Well, I think he's right about Biden still being the odds-on favorite. Like I said before, you do not give the Ring of Power or the gauntlet to Thanos and think he's just going to give it back easily. I mean, he's got Ocasio-Cortez eating out of his hands because she was obviously offered something that she covets. That level of power is just, there's no equivalent on the other side. And the other side understands, the other side of the left, I should say, they're going to have to destroy him to get power back, and that could simultaneously destroy them as well.
Very quickly, a couple of things. How many times, I've mentioned this to you a few times, that boy, so far this year, it just seems like for an election year, it's been really, really just kind of a lot of meh. Finally, we have some intriguing news. And the intrigue about this, the Democrats deserve it. Okay, say whatever you want about Donald Trump, they deserve it. Number two, Chris Bedford, really sharp dude.
Yeah, very impressive. All right, we're going to resurrect fake news or not for this occasion next. Back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. I am Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can do so by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also, if you wouldn't mind, if you listen to the podcast version, please leave us a 5-star review. We thank the thousands upon thousands of you who have done this. For each and every one, you can now do the same if you would like. You can also hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. And that way, every time a new episode is dropped from us, it'll drop in your feed every single time. And we thank all of you that have done that for us as well. We also thank our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company, the Christian-owned Patriot Coffee Company that has the same values as you, but don't buy it for that reason. Do so because it's a hella cup of coffee. So many great flavors for every freedom-loving American, like Boston Common, the John Hancock, the Lexington, the Washington, the Pharaoh, named after Lucy Pharaoh, the first black spirit-filled revivalist of the colonial era. I mean, these are just outstanding testimonies and legacies that you can touch upon. And Aaron, you'll vouch for the fact it's also some pretty outstanding coffee.
Yeah, the Pharaoh is my chosen flavor. I'll drink it a couple times in the morning. It's just amazing coffee, and the value added is that these are great people who are producing this as well. And I love my coffee. It's a food group to me. I can't go through a day hardly without drinking a cup of coffee, even if it's 95 degrees outside. Still got to have it. You couldn't do better, I don't think, than First Cup.
So go to firstcup.com, use the code DACE. You'll save an additional 10% off your order if you subscribe. And if you do, all subscribers get free shipping, no contracts. You can cancel at any time, change your subscription at any time, choose any flavor, quantity, shipping frequency. I mean, they make it as customizable for you as possible. Firstcup.com, use the promo code DACE. Go to firstcup.com and use the promo code DACE. All right, bottom of the hour, we will get into Pop Culture Tuesday, kind of a mini tradition on the show. We get through halfway of each year. I give you my top 10 movies of the year thus far, and I'm going to do that for 2024 coming up at the bottom of the hour. And we'll look at the belief systems and worldviews articulated in each of these films as well, because that's kind of how we roll around here. But I want to resurrect, if you guys don't mind, an oldie but goodie. And it hasn't been gone long. We just decided to evolve it this year and turn it into idolatry or not. But it is time, I think, at least for a one-night engagement only, to bring back fake news or not. And I want to do so, as I was teasing last hour, because I want us to have an in-depth discussion for the next 20 minutes or so about why we might be seeing the fakest news we have ever seen right now. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge the bar that has to be cleared or lowered here, as the case may be, in making such a claim, right? Like somewhere in a prison cell, Michael Avenatti's ears perked up and said, what? Okay, so I understand. Now, it doesn't mean I'm right, but I do understand what it would take for this claim to ring true. I mean, we just lived through several years of virology and natural immunity. What is it, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. We watched a Nobel Prize winning drug, and not a drug that was given the Nobel Prize like in the 60s. Okay. It was given a Nobel Prize just within 5 years of when COVID began. And we watched them totally retcon this. And that retconning got so deep in the water table that Terry friggin' Bradshaw was dropping horse paste on Aaron Rodgers on the Fox NFL Sunday pregame show. Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't up here that this was going down. It made it all the way down to the Fox NFL Sunday pregame show with Terry friggin' Bradshaw. Okay, which gives you an idea the level of gaslighting it has to take for it to permeate to that level of the culture. You know what I'm saying? We lived through that. We lived through, if you take this shot, you won't get COVID. We have lived through, even though I am fully vaccinated and have COVID, I would be even more seriously ill if I had not taken the shot that did not work. We lived through how many of those statements? That became a game. Say it! We were sitting here on the show like Sam Kinison. Say it! Every politician, R or D, had to put that statement out, right? How many? No, there was you have a prominent college football player was announced last week. His season is in jeopardy with, is it blood clots in his lungs, I believe?
I believe so, yeah.
Now, all three of us at various times in our lives have been like college football, somewhere between fanatical to obsessed at different periods of our time, sure. Right? This would be the time of year you're studying depth charts, reading preseason magazines. We've all three of us been at those stages at various times as fans, right? When was the last time you heard the blood clots in the lungs injury? Oh, that guy is going to be available this fall. Blood clots in the lungs.
A lot of times since 2021.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Prior to 2021, how many times did you have to check the injured report for blood clots in the lungs for the college football players? Answer: never. Okay, so the level of gaslighting here. Well, it's illegal. You're seeing it now. We don't need to make laws against illegal aliens voting because it's illegal for them to be here. From the people who let millions in here. Right? I mean, there's no voter fraud at all, and no one ever has claimed before, like Trump did, that the election was stolen from them after a loss, even though Hillary Clinton, like 10 minutes ago, is still claiming Russian collusion cost her the election. Yeah, I mean, I could go on. I've got to be. What am I missing? I know I'm missing things just in the last few years, even saying.
Of course you are, but that's why we're here, because no lessons have been learned. So
Correct.
Of course they're re-racking it.
Correct. So, when I say this might be the fakest news we have ever seen, I understand what I mean when I say that. Now, you can decide whether what I'm about to lay out meets that threshold or not, whether what I'm about to lay out lives up to that advanced billing. But I want you to know, I'm feeling it. I know what it means that I'm claiming what we're seeing right now is the fakest thing I've ever seen. I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. Okay? Because I don't know her personally. I've interacted with her vaguely a couple of times. She actually covered the story about my Marine friend Bill Salier, who was part of the first President Bush's security detail at Camp David, who was given the denial, from his pharmacy for ivermectin and had to go get the horse paste version and almost died. Right? She actually covered that story. Okay, but man, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. Okay, but I want to share it with you. I got to do it, guys. Okay. You guys know who Sarah Carter is?
Yeah, in the name.
Yeah, you should. She's a pretty respectable journalist for Sinclair, I believe. For our side, she's really good at what she does. Okay? And that's why I think I need to single her out. Because this isn't just some grifter. This isn't just some, ne'er-do-well. This isn't someone that doesn't know what time it is. So they're not either grifting or naive. That's not who this woman is. Which is why I think I need to make this point. Because if she can succumb to this, then a lot of people could. All right? 1 hour ago, Sarah Carter posted on X or Twitter, and I quote, "Thank you, Jake Tapper, for finally saying what we all know to be true, but few CNN viewers actually were aware of because so many others in the media covered it up and gaslit the public." Talking about Biden's cognitive decline. Would Jake Tapper not be one of those media members?
You know what I think about Jake Tapper. I was warning you against this very thing last
week.
You were
ahead of the curve on this.
No.
Yes. And in her defense, it's very possible she means this sarcastically. That's very possible. Okay. But
people are doing this with Jon Stewart now too.
Yes.
Jon Stewart?
Nothing you're seeing with this media on Biden's cognitive state is real. Nothing is. It's not any more real than making Michael Avenatti a household name. Why? And then what happened to Michael Avenatti? In fact, let's use him as an omen for what you're seeing right here. Michael Avenatti was useful for the agenda. And then once the baggage became too voluminous that they could no longer carry it. And remember, who was it that originally, if I remember right, who came out with the stories about him trying to allegedly blackmail Nike or some other people? It was the LA Times did that story. Their own media did it. When the grief to profit ratio for Michael Avenatti went into the red, they suddenly were very curious about Michael Avenatti's past and his record as a litigator and what kind of character and integrity he had. When he was useful to them and representing Stormy Daniels and was giving them a quip and a quote a minute to tarnish Trump, they didn't care about Michael Avenatti's character at all. Even if they knew it, they might have looked, didn't care. Might not. Chances are they probably didn't even bother to check. But when it was clear that Michael Avenatti was going to become an embarrassment to them, suddenly now they're very interested in all of this. And they do the reporting. They go full Miller's Crossing, if you know the reference I'm making. And in any mob movie, it's Creedle. Whoever brings in the failing capo or failing officer in the mob, or brings in the one who was the rat, okay? It is always that person's responsibility to take out the trash, right? That's what you see at Miller's Crossing. You take the rat out, and you brought him in. It's your responsibility. You have to take him out. And that's what they did to Michael Avenatti. That's why you don't hear his name anymore, where 2017, 2018, one of those summers, Michael Avenatti was everywhere, even getting questions from major Democratic media people about running for president. And then he outlived his usefulness, and he had to go. Everything that this industry does, corporate media, everything, has no integrity at all. None. Everything is about an agenda. For example, after I walked off the set on CNN, when they put me on with some guy whose name I don't even know, who claimed I was a member of the Christian Taliban, and I'm just like, I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not running for office. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not going to be subjected to this. Remember this? I just took my earpiece off and just walked off this. Do that on your own time, man. I got other fish to fry. I don't need your platform at all, let alone this bad. So I just took my earpiece out in the middle of the segment and walked off. They never called me back again for a couple of years until Trump, as president, went out to North Korea. Or went out there, but he visited him somewhere. Maybe it was there. Remember there's some summit between the two. And remember how again, man, I'm a child of the 80s, and I can't do the slobbering with communists. You know what I'm saying? I just can't. Okay. You know, this era has almost beat the "We're America, bitch" child of the 80s totally out of me, but there's still some residual of that energy from the era in which I grew up. You know what I'm saying? You know, you grew up in the same era. Okay, it's not nearly ready to aim fire as it used to be, but it's not totally gone either. Okay, and so I can't do the slobbering over communist. I can't do it. And so I was very critical of that. Well, lo and behold, CNN found my number and called and asked me to come on. It's interesting, right? Why? Because they were looking for someone that would fit their agenda. Everything's about the agenda, and the agenda is everything. All is the agenda, and the agenda is all. They do not care that Joe Biden is cognitively impaired. They don't care. They didn't care on June 26th. They didn't care on June 25th. They didn't care on June 24th. They didn't care all throughout the year 2023. They didn't care all throughout the year 2022. They didn't care all throughout the year 2021. They didn't care all throughout the year 2020. They care now because he went up there in front of at least 80 million Americans and broke through their Overton window gaslighting of this. And dumped it went full Union Carbide, if you know that reference from the 80s, and put it right straight in the water table, baby. And now everybody's drinking that water. Not just the people in our ecosystem, not just us. I mean, I don't know too many shows that were talking about Biden's mental state earlier than we were. We were talking about it during the Iowa caucuses in the fall of 2019 and the winter of 2020. We're like, this guy is having lapses. It's not the same guy. We were showing clips of Biden in 2012 and 2016 way back then. And here's the thing. This is not the same as Fetterman. I keep seeing some people on our side making that analogy. It's not the same. Number one, that was way later in the process. By then, there was no mechanism by which to remove. Number two, Fetterman's much younger. So the idea that this was some form of temporary malady where there was a realistic chance he could improve was available. That this is an 82-year-old man. He's not. These symptoms and signs are all getting worse, and they're going to get worse throughout the rest of the next 3.5 months before this election. Father Time is undefeated, so it's not the same thing. Number 3, a lot more people have voted for Donald Trump for public office than ever voted for Mehmet Oz. How many elections Mehmet Oz ever won? None. Tens of millions of people have voted for Donald Trump before. It's just not the same thing. And that's why they're acting differently where this is concerned than they did John Fetterman. It's in the water table now. It's everywhere. Everybody, let's go back to the sports arena. We just talked about how it previously permeated the sports arena with ivermectin, right? Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd, arguably the 2 biggest sports talk radio shows in America, were all over Biden's dementia the next day. Chris is right. If Biden survives, a month from now, when they get ready for their convention, they're going to act like none of this ever happened. And they'll do that amongst themselves. And that'll give Biden some floor. Like he wouldn't get like below 43 or 44% of the popular vote just because of that's, the amount of hardcore partisans they have. But the normie voters, it's in the water table now. They can't put the genie back in the bottle. It's out there. And I thought what Chris Bedford pointed out of how much of what Kennedy said about Carter, Reagan used against Carter in 80. I mean, the Trump team is just going to sit there, guys, running all these headlines and all these commercials. They're going to take the idea of the ad that we had with Biden stumbling and stuttering everywhere, and they're going to do it on steroids, and they're going to do it better than us because now they're going to use Jake Tapper and these other people talking about it in the actual ad. You see what I'm saying? They're going to devastate Biden with that. If he survives. These media people don't care about that. They care about their agenda. And Biden has outlived his usefulness. So just like when Avenatti outlived his usefulness, it was time to tell the truth about him. Biden has outlived his. It's time to tell the truth about him too. That's all. Nothing is happening here other than that. Which is why that medical expert you saw on MSNBC in Aaron's montage from yesterday, just outright saying the president has Parkinson's. I've seen what Parkinson's can do. It was one of the chief maladies that devastated my father-in-law that we laid to rest 2 years ago. Don't be surprised. That same medical expert, just in time for the 2026 midterms, he's going to be back on TV or somebody like him in all the same channels saying all the same things about Donald Trump. And they built their credibility. And you're all going to tell me they have no credibility. With you, they don't have any. But with the people who told you, the people who went up to, what's the lovely young lady from Pennsylvania? Well, she moved out of there now. And she's doing the great work for the Daily Caller. On WPath, and she said,
Meg.
Yeah, Meg Brock, right? The people, the guys who walked up to the women like Meg Brock who didn't want to wear the mask at Rite Aid, they hold all kinds of sway with them. Oh yeah. Don't tell me they don't have any sway. Don't tell me they don't have any influence. Over 80% of American adults took one dose, sight unseen, of an absolute toxin. Because they were told to. By the people you're telling me don't have any sway or influence. They don't with us. But again, there's another big America out there, guys. And so just like they made sure Hunter Biden went down for everything other than the stuff that matters that were tied to the shady business deals he did with his old man, the big man, okay? Because that gave them the credibility to do lawfare against Trump and then go to normie America and say, see, we're not biased. We're holding both sides accountable here. They're going to do the same thing. You'll see Jake Tapper and all these exact same people in time for the 2026 midterms talking about Donald Trump, now 80 years old, his cognitive impairment. And they'll remind you, we told you the truth about Joe Biden, even though it cost the Democrats the election, because the security of the country is just that important. And the minute Donald Trump forgets something, and he will, because he's going to be 82 by the time this term ends. He will. Father Time is undefeated. They're going to be all over that. You're being set up for that now. Because this is how demons operate. They play chess while the rest of us are barely playing checkers. There's multiple outcomes here. Don't make this. The ultimate outcome is to get rid of Biden and not risk this election. That's their ultimate outcome. They may not be able to pull that off. So the backup plan will be, okay, you guys want to nominate, you guys want to elect a geriatric on your side? Cool. We'll just come back with the exact same narrative against him later. And then we've already established our credibility. We hammered the Biden administration on this, so now we get to hammer Trump on this. You prove a negative. You prove you're not cognitively impaired. And show us a doctor other than that weirdo one you have who looks like the guy who played Data, the doctor who he played in Independence Day, that weird doctor Trump had in 2016. Come up with somebody else. In fact, we'll give you the doctor. Do it with our doctors. And that'll be the story every day. They might do it right from the jump of the Trump presidency. Or they'll just wait in time to help the Democrats win 50 seats in the House in the 2026 midterms. No. Nobody's doing any real journalism here. No one's doing any real work here. No one has any integrity here. It's all fake. All of it. And the fact that they are telling the truth while being fake is why I think this is the fakest news that ever faked in my career, what we're watching right now. Todd and Aaron, I want to get your thoughts here after I spend a few minutes discussing our friends over at Patriot Mobile. For a decade now, they've been America's only American mobile phone provider. And when I say only, trust me, they are the only ones. They have an outstanding product and an even more outstanding customer service team. They've been great to our family. I know a lot of you I've heard from in the audience as well that have had good experiences with them. They give you access to all of the 3 major networks out there. You can switch anytime you want. As a customer, you can, when you make the switch, customization is their thing too. You can keep your phone, upgrade your phone, keep your number, change your number, whichever you prefer to do, I should say, with their 100% US-based customer service team, which means you can understand them. So make the switch today. If you're a veteran or first responder, let them know when you go to make the switch, because they have extra ways to say thank you for your service. All of us can use my name, Steve, as your promo code to get a free activation today when you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve and use the promo code Steve. Promo code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Promo code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Gentlemen, what do you think?
Well, lying has an addictive quality to it. So even when the fake news stops working, they'll probably keep doing it on some level, but they're definitely still trying to do it because it does work. And look at, again, our side, whoever that is, broadly speaking, to your point on who you started with, listen, the degree to which we run to, sick burns from the Chuckle Hut for our satisfaction, and that's as deep as our political analysis goes. I swear to God, Jake Tapper, he's terrible. I call him Goebbels Tapper, and I have been for a long time. He lies about so many things. But you know where he pivoted and learned how to do what he does? From Jon Stewart. And our side is pointing out, oh, look, Jon Stewart's even fed up with this. Sure. Right. And again, people are really happy that Jean-Pierre is finally getting her just desserts from the press and asking tough questions. I don't know about you. I resent the hell way more out of the press corps than I do about her. She's a known quantity and has been a liar the whole time. And they've been fine with it until now. You should be disgusted with them, not cheering them on, because they are going to do everything that Steve just got done saying. They're not doing it on your behalf. They're not doing it because they suddenly found something out that they didn't know. They just resent the fact that they aren't quite as in as they thought they were. I mean, guys, we got to stop falling for that. Otherwise, this is all we ultimately end up deserving. I really cannot believe the amount of time people who say they want something different, clapping like trained seals, thinking that the people we're talking about are finally coming around. No way. Don't be a sucker.
It's, again, don't quote the Constitution to somebody who's got a gun at your head. These people, they don't care. They are not dissuaded by your eloquent arguments. Up until 5 minutes ago, that's what most of righty media, most of the righty ecosystem has been preaching about the left, the Democrat media industrial complex. That's what they've been preaching, have they not? And then 5 minutes ago, oh, finally, they're waking up. No. You don't just wake up from possession. You don't just wake up from mental ill. No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You're just merely witnessing some tension on their side about the impulse to win now, to wield power now, and the reality that the guy in power right now doesn't want to give up that power. That's the tension that you're seeing. In other words, they are burdened by what has been, dreaming about what could be. That's what there's no waking up going on. None at all. So we delude ourselves over and over because we don't practice three-dimensional thinking at all, like ever. We don't practice two-dimensional thinking. We don't know why we believe. We don't know why we believe what we believe. Or we don't know what we believe. We don't know why we believe what we believe. And we certainly don't know why they believe what they believe about what they believe. Why they believe what they believe. The people perish. For what? Lack of knowledge. We've had ample examples now over the last 10 years. The people on the left have telegraphed over and over again who they are. Nobody's waking up. We could use this as an instructive moment to make hay while the sun shines while they are in disarray. But instead, some on the right are convincing themselves that this is some sort of Valhalla, that the Jake Tappers of the world are finally, you know what? Now that we think about it, MAGA isn't so demonic and Hitler-esque after all. No. Know what time it is. A lot of people preach that. Yeah. And then as soon as something titillates their itching ears, they're completely in the opposite direction. Yes,
the people are way more honest. Whoopi Goldberg, I don't care if he poops his pants. I poop my pants sometimes. She's being honest. The chick on MSNBC, what's her name? The African-American gal. But she just said he could be.
Joy Reid?
Joy Reid.
Yeah.
He could be in a coma. I'll vote for him. That's being honest.
I think we have to accept, and we're going to have to reinforce this point a lot. And this is something in the last couple of years I've had to accept, so I get it. There aren't the traditional natural consequences of things that exist in a Christian culture.
Correct.
Where you have the laws of nature, and nature's God. Okay? So the idea that there would be some form of natural consequences that even people that don't have any that are spiritually dead would be forced to recognize or held accountable to or wake up to is not necessarily the case.
What's a woman, Steve?
You just you sink deeper and deeper into moral subjectivism in that case. Yes. Well, we know where the hub of a lot of the demonic spirit of the age influence infesting the culture is coming from. It's coming from a lot of the educrat establishment, but in particular, the universities and the colleges, too many of them in America. Thankfully, there is still a remnant, and leading that remnant is our friends over at Hillsdale College. They are still abiding by their founding vision. It still guides them to this very day to create the kind of serious education needed to preserve the blessings of civil and religious liberty across the land. And that is the lodestar for Hillsdale, whether it's on their original OG campus in Michigan, or it's on their D.C. campus, or any of the work they do on behalf behalf of American liberty all over the country. Take some time today to learn more about this mission when you go to daceforhillsdale.com. That's F-O-R, daceforhillsdale.com. A lot of great information there, videos, a short one just over a minute long you can watch. Maybe you'll share that as well so others can also find out about, you don't necessarily have to send your kids to the enemy's camp. I just know so many families, for example, that just tirelessly toiled to homeschool their children and give them a bedrock and a plumb line to start with, and then sent them off to these universities, and they just lost them. You don't have to do that. Go to daceforhillsdale.com, F-O-R, daceforhillsdale.com. All right, let's get to Pop Culture Tuesday, where we look at the intersection each week between what's trending in pop culture and the things that we, allegedly anyway, are attempting to conserve. And I do this kind of every year. This time of year, we get halfway through a given calendar, and I like to go through and list what are my top 10 movies of the year thus far. And then we're going to look at them from a worldview standpoint as well. You guys ready to go? Okay. All right, let's start with number 10. My number 10 movie so far this year, in the year 2024, is If, in all caps, which stands for Imaginary Friend. This is a collaboration between John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds. It doesn't quite get to the heights that it aspires to, but the movie has a lot to say about creativity, about allowing some of the innocence and naivete are not the same thing. Fair?
Right.
All right. But allowing, some of that innocence, and in the biblical worldview, we would say the faith like a child, allowing some of that to go, if not all of it, as an adult. So, you go from faith as a child to, you go from suffer the little children to come to me to your Lord saying, how much longer do I have to be with these people? Okay. Because you'll just allow too much of this fallen world to get on you and to infect you. And it's a powerful story told here with the loss of a mother. And now the father is facing the potential of a similar fate, and how the daughter, caught in the middle of this, is trying to deal with it, only to find out that imaginary friends are real. Ryan Reynolds shows he can be very charming without 57 F-bombs. So when you see him in the future, you remind him, I saw you do this once. You can do it without that. Okay. So really liked the movie. One of the best family-friendly movies I've seen so far this year. So If is my number 10 film. Number 9 on my list is not a family-friendly film, but my goodness, is it cathartic. I want to make sure you understand The Beekeeper is total schlock. It is not a good movie, but it is one of the best movies I have seen this year. The plot of The Beekeeper is essentially a Trump voter finds out Hillary Clinton and Hunter Biden are basically running a scam from the White House. Hillary's president, and she's got a Hunter Biden-like son that's essentially running a corrupt fiefdom. And a Trump voter with a particular set of skills. Okay. Just decides he got a hold of the Dominion flowchart. All right, he got a hold of it, and some Krakens get released in this one, baby. All right. So if we ever were able to unlock the Dominion flowchart, and we ever were able to release a Kraken or two, it would look a lot like The Beekeeper. All right. All the right people pay. And they pay dearly. I mean, it's a throwback to the Dirty Harry stuff, to some of the revenge porn that Schwarzenegger did when we were kids. Okay, I mean, to quote the great prophet Ice Cube, I came out of that film feeling about 10 pounds lighter. I mean, the amount of weight I just felt like lifted off my shoulders, and I kind of felt like I can't watch it again. Like it's too guilty. There's a guilty pleasure, and like I feel guilty for finding pleasure in this. All right, so I don't know that repeat viewings, because with every ensuing viewing, your conscience might be like, that's enough, that's enough, that's enough. But one time, just a little taste. It was sweet as honey. I'm going to tell you, this movie was. Just thinking about it now,
I can tell.
Just makes you want to go get a pack of Marlboro Reds, man. I mean, this movie is, this movie, I hope you take a load off. I'll put it that way. All right. So enjoyed it quite a bit. Number 8 might be the only good horror movie I've seen so far in 2024. Now, I've not seen a lot of them because a lot of them have been kind of splatter fests. And not
you heard
more.
about this Longlegs movie?
With the new Nick Cage one,
Yeah.
The reviews on that are really good. I may go see that. Yeah. That comes out this weekend, I think, right? This has not been a great year of horror for the horror genre thus far. But this movie is particularly good. And I hate to say this, it kind of reminded me of my own movie a little bit. All right. It's called Late Night with the Devil. David De'Master, if you don't know who that is. Remember in The Dark Knight, the crazy guy that Harvey Dent corners, okay?
Yeah.
That he thinks might be the Joker?
Yeah.
That's David De'Master, okay? He plays a guy who has been, in the late 70s, trying to go up against The Tonight Show on late night TV and failing. And he's basically been given an edict from corporate. Got to hit something big, or this is it. And it's got to be on Halloween night. He brings in a woman he is seeing, who's a psychiatrist, who is trying to medically and with psychiatric therapy rescue a young girl that was caught in an abusive web in her family that were all into the occult. Okay, and of course, none of these people believe any of this stuff is true. Okay, so they bring this young woman and his girlfriend psychiatrist on his national TV show. All right, and they think it's just going to be kind of creepy and spooky, and they're going to pull a stunt for Halloween. And like Nefarious, it is largely contained on one set. The entire movie largely takes place on the set of his show. Okay, it is largely driven by dialogue. It also reminds me of the film, you guys know I loved a movie from a few years ago called The Cleansing Hour, where the guy is pretending to be the priest because he couldn't get in because he just liked the ladies too much, and so he's been doing like fake exorcisms because he really wanted to be an exorcist, and then one day hell shows up for real on the set. That is what happens to David De'Master in this film. Okay, it is the only horror movie I've seen this year. I walked away so far and I thought that is a good movie. Okay, given the spiritual themes it touches upon, not for the faint of heart. All right, but it's very, very well done, and the number one way it reminds me of Nefarious is not just that it's largely contained in a single set, but we went for the dynamic of using a demonic presence to attack the left from the left. Like, show these people what the true origin of their worldview is and how shallow they really are while thinking they're the enlightened ones. This movie does that too. Now, I think it may do so unintentionally, all right? But it's absolutely a factor in this film, all right? So it's number 8 on my list. Number 7 on my list is Horizon: An American Saga, Chapter 1. This is, I think the first is at 4 chapters or 2. Of Kevin Costner's kind of vanity project of the settling of the Old West. This movie should have been no lower than number 3 on this list, but Costner couldn't quite pull it off. But because of what he attempted, I'm going to rank it highly, even though the movie has flaws. Like, for example, the beginning makes no sense. The beginning is very choppy, uneven. It doesn't make any sense. And then about 15 minutes into the film, you're going to be like, oh, this is like an anthology where there are several storylines happening simultaneously that do not necessarily intersect with one another, okay? The movie does not make that clear from the beginning. Its narrative, therefore, is very uneven from the start. My wife felt this way, and when I posted my review, I heard several comments from people who had the same thoughts as my wife. They were just so thrown off in the beginning that they could not catch back up to the movie. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I mean, it took me like nearly a half an hour to feel like, oh, okay, I think I now figured it out. You don't want to make a movie that is the sweeping epic this attempts to be, that it takes people 30 minutes to get into the movie to be able to figure it out if they can. But if you can figure it out, it's well done. It tells the tale of the settling of the Old West from everyone's perspective. The indigenous are not automatic victims, and the settlers are not automatic, patriots. You get an idea of what happens to the world, to a worldview and where lawlessness kind of reigns supreme, and some people have a faith that allows them to rise above that, and many people don't. So I found it to be very fascinating, even though the movie's not as good as it should have been. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, hey, being the number 7 movie so far this year for another movie would be pretty good. But given what Costner was trying to do, this movie should have been better. Number 6 is one of the best date night movies that's been made by Hollywood. Maybe the best date night movie Hollywood has made since COVID. It's called The Fall Guy. And it's a flawless date movie. And it's not crude. It's not profane. True love conquers all at the end. Okay. They are able to depict a strong woman who's also feminine. The guy's not a moron or an idiot. Okay. There's a really cool cameo with the original Fall Guy, Lee Majors, in the after credit scene. It's a perfect date night film. Perfect. And it's the kind of film that in any previous era would have made $200 million at the box office easy. But because they made it for us and they have so disappointed many of our people, they don't go see movies like this anymore. And so the movie was a box office failure. But if you go watch it on Amazon or anything else on VOD right now, and you're going to be like, this movie's great, man. Why was this movie not a bigger hit? It's a phenomenal film. Number 5, another movie that was also made for us that in another era would have made a lot more money. But, Hollywood has lost a lot of trust with people like us now, so we don't see even movies made for us as much as we used to. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Now, this movie is violent without being crude. This is just another excellent film by Guy Ritchie, who has really turned into a hell of a filmmaker. It's based on a true story that did not come to light until some private files of Winston Churchill were declassified in 2016. That he essentially went out and got some people that the Her Majesty's service considered to be scoundrels. And he thought that's exactly what we need up against the demons over there in Berlin. And he created, he put them together to create basically his own off-the-books Black Ops team to do the stuff that could not be done. Okay. And one of their singular missions was, it was how the Brits freed themselves of the U-boats so they could not fight back against the Germans. They were in complete control of the seas. They found out through their intelligence where they were keeping their supply lines for the U-boats, but it was a neutral country, so they couldn't bomb it themselves because other neutral nations would view that as an act of war and come in against them, and they couldn't risk that. So they sent this Black Ops team in to do the job instead. Henry Cavill is the leader. Is George Papard as Hannibal in the A-Team level good? And it's that kind of a movie. It's really, really cool, really well done. And it's Guy Ritchie, so, snappy dialogue, slick pacing, very, high quality music in the background to keep the pace going. Really enjoyed it. Number 4, movie we previewed on the show last week, Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot, the latest from Angel Studios. We gave them a big review already. No need to go back through that, but a great film, very well acted, very well done. Number 3, A Quiet Place Day 1 blew me away. Had me on the edge of my seat. And to do that with a prequel when you kind of know what's going to go down is not easy to do. The chemistry here between the two main actors was phenomenal. And it's pretty close to a perfect prequel. If you can build suspense into a prequel when you know what's going to happen, you have done a job. And so this is John Krasinski. There's his name again. This is his key franchise. And this is the sequel they did a couple of years ago was pretty good with Cillian Murphy. This is definitely superior to that. Number 2. Some people think this movie came out in 2023. It got a limited release in 2023 to be eligible for the Oscars, but its wide release was in 2024. The Zone of Interest. It is the best Holocaust movie since Schindler's List. It is also the most frightening movie I've seen since Hereditary, and that movie was 7 years ago or 6 years ago, and it's not a horror film. Basically what they did is they show you the life of Rudolf Hess, not the high-ranking Nazi party member, but a different Rudolf Hess who ran Auschwitz, the concentration camp. And his family's home and estate was on the other side of the fence. And they've got cameras in all the rooms. It makes it look like it's a found footage, but you're watching it like it's happening in real time. And they just said, act like a family. And for an hour and a half or so, you watch this family just, have school, bring in the in-laws, bring over friends, and you can hear in the background prisoners being shot. They're living their lives while the soot, the ash from the gas chambers, from the ovens, I should say, is just falling in the backyard like snow. I mean, it's brilliant and haunting and beyond frightening. It demonstrates pure evil. Number one is Dune 2. This is Lord of the Rings level world building and storytelling. I mean, Dune 2 is just an absolute masterpiece. It's one of the best science fiction films of all time. The level of acting, the cinematography, the story, the execution. I mean, Dune 2 is a masterpiece. It's a magnum opus. It'll be very hard for a film this year to top that, in my view. All right, so after we talk about Eden Pure, I want to know what you guys think. All right, with their outstanding Thunderstorm air purifier with filterless Oxy technology, so you're never replacing filters in or out of pocket. It's why they've got so many thousands of 5-star reviews online, and so many of you have enjoyed this product within our audience. You can get it today. It's not a freshener, it's a purifier. It's going to absolutely crush the components in your home that are causing the bad smells. Viruses, bacteria, cigarette smoke, body odor, pet smells stand no chance up against the Eden Pure. You can get 3 units right now for whole home protection for under $200, so you can put one on every level of your house or the garage if you want to do that. All right, with the discount code STEVE3. Get the big savings with the discount code STEVE3 at EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code STEVE3 at EdenPureDeals.com. All right, quick thought before we get out of here on my list from anybody?
I've only seen one of the movies, but this is one of the lists that when they ultimately come around, I might see at least half of them.
The zone of interest will blow your mind, for sure. Aaron, you have anything real quick?
I was going to say basically the same thing. Surprisingly, it's actually kind of been, from your vantage point, a good year for movies. Decent, yeah, so far. Could be better, but decent. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, Romans 8:28.